Welcome to the Lamb's High Feast. I'm Father Timothy Eck. This week we celebrate the 5th week of Ordinary Time on February 8th, 2026. You can find today's readings in the show notes. May the Lord who feeds us at his altar bless you through his word. Do you know the names of the poor? We often seek to live a comfortable, stable life where the vicissitudes of the world around us do not intrude upon our daily affairs. We strive to be quote-unquote middle class, respectable, and maintain certain social appearances and expectations. At the same time, seeking the stable point, we become so anxiety-riddled as we recognize just how precarious a position it is and the pressure of staying there. This anxiety for stability leads us to insulate ourselves from the perceived sources of these pressures, and so others become distant. This distance in turn makes our responsibility to our neighbors feel abstract. And cocooned in this state, we desire more than anything that no one rocks the boat. We finally made it, don't ruin it. I'm barely holding on, don't make it worse. Against this mentality which rejects anything that would potentially upset our middle-class stability, the prophet Isaiah calls us to share your bread with the hungry, shelter the oppressed and the homeless. And by oppressed, Isaiah does not mean oppression as the world defines it, but as God does, those burdened by offenses against the divine law and ignorance of his divine wisdom. Now, none of us would say that this should not happen, that the poor should not have food. But we say, I cannot do it. I'm barely okay myself. Then we say, someone else should do it. And then quietly we decide that because someone else is responsible, we are no longer obligated to offer a hand in support. But then we look around and don't really see anyone doing these things, and we grow angry that those others are not helping the poor and oppressed. But you see, there's a saying that you do not truly love the poor until you know their names. Think about that person in your office that just lost their job, but you never really knew. The family down the street. Person in the pew you haven't seen in months. Do you know their names, their stories? Until you know someone's name, you do not really know them. Until you know them, you can't love them, but only your idea of them. But when you love only the idea of the poor, you do not know how to help them because the poor are not ideas. And so in our ignorance, we grow frustrated. Not only that little is being done, but then even what is done does not seem to work. This is the natural result of seeking a middle-class life insulated from the worries of the world. We have built our lives in neighborhoods to hide the poor and oppressed. Yet there was a time when people would give up their entire lives as religious for the sole purpose of loving the poor. We instead now shun the poor and export the responsibility of caring for them to state officials. And having done so, is it no wonder that our society worships the state? How could we not do so if we as Christians have handed over the very task that makes God's glory known to the state? After all, Isaiah said, it is precisely through the care of the poor and oppressed that the light and glory of God will burst forth in the world. When we give this light to the state takes on that light and glory which properly belongs only to God. We must reclaim the light that Isaiah prophesied and Christ proclaimed. We must do so in order to be the light on the mountain and so draw all nations to God. To do so, we must know the poor by name and enter into their lives. We must know those who are oppressed by evil and ignorance and strive to set them free. We must encourage vocations to religious life and service to the poor and not discourage them. We can only so easily say, yes, I want there to be more brothers and sisters, and then in the very next breath say, but not my son or daughter, granddaughter or grandson. But if not yours, then whose? Someone else's? Why is it that someone else must always make the sacrifice? Whenever we say that it is someone else's responsibility for any of these, we are saying that we do not want the light of Christ to shine forth in us. That we do not want to bring God's light into the darkness, but instead that we prefer to sit in darkness. And the darkness of the world will only increase so long as we who claim to be Christian hide within the enclaves of comfort and respectability. The light of Christ can only shine in the darkness if we are willing to go into the darkness of poverty and oppression. And we begin to do so only when the poor and oppressed are no longer an issue to be managed, but a person to be known. And so I ask you, who among you will drive back the darkness?